Hari Om.
Okay, Mataji, again, thank you for joining us this morning, this evening, wherever people happen to be in the world. I know we have folks joining from India that you've also invited, and many from the U.S. Here today. I'd like to just start the interview. We have greetings to your sister, whoever that is. That I've been enjoying reading the material on your blog, and one of the aspects that you speak of that I really enjoyed very much is the science behind Hindu practices, such as a few of which, like doing the pranam that you just shared with us, started to be used by people more worldwide. And one aspect of this that I find really interesting is to really understand the value of ritual and ritual practices like those that you discuss. Or to put it another way, when many people hear ritual, they think superstition, which is, I think, ritual performed mindlessly. But when done with consciousness, as I think you're really speaking of, it can be a pathway to higher consciousness. So I was wondering if you could speak to that value of ritual and some of those, the Hindu practices you discuss, and how to engage in ritual practices with the most engaging and beneficial consciousness.
Well, all religions, as you know, have some form of ritual or other, because it's something which appeals to the human heart, not just to the head, So in Hinduism, the rituals are very, very closely connected to real scientific truths of our body, of both our psyche as well as our body, both mind and body. So that's why these rituals are so important, because they activate certain things in your own mind and in your own body also. So let's take up the Namaste, pranam, which I started with. This is something we greet everybody. Whenever we see somebody, we greet him with this particular sign. Now, what exactly does this mean? Usually when we go to a temple also, this is the sign we do, because we are making our obeisance to the divinity installed in the temple. And when we do the same thing, we do greet everybody who comes near us with the same sign, because we are not greeting that personality who is standing in front of us, but we are greeting, our obeisance is being given to the divinity which is lodged in that person. Now, that is one aspect of it. So what does that, the word Nama Astu Te, when you say Namaste, it is Nama Astu Te. Nama means I bow, I'm here bowing Te, to you. I bow to that divinity in you. So this is done to everybody because of, as a recognition, as I said, of that divinity which exists in everything, not just every human being, but in everything. Now, another thing is that they were very conscious of the fact that there are certain energy points, which especially the tips of the fingers are very, very sensitive to this. So when you do this, all these energy points are being actually activated. So we see that this also brings a great there is an immediate response, subconscious or unconscious response by the body when we activate all these energy points. So this is another reason why we would do this rather than shake hands. Because when we shake hands, what happens is some of the energy from that person, it may be negative or positive, we don't really know, may pass on to you. And you, in doing so, you may also lose some of your positive energy to that person. So this is a far better method, because it is actually energizing yourself, and the other person also, when he responds with the same sort of greeting, he is also energizing himself. So that is why this is used now. Now, as I said, many of the rituals connected with Hinduism are highly scientific. They are all not just rituals. Many of the little things that which we do, for instance, in Hinduism, as you know, it is a way of life. So what the ancient rishis did was to give us certain instructions how life should be lived from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to sleep. And all of these things are supposed to connect us to some degree with the forces of nature and with our own divinity inside. Because in Hinduism, man, nature, and God are not three different things which are totally unrelated and cannot come together. Man, God, and nature are totally connected, and we are totally connected with this whole universe. Because what are we made of? What are our bodies made up of? The 5 elements, that is space, air, fire, water, and earth. Now, the whole universe is made up of these 5 fundamental elements. So we are vibrating with everything in the universe. We cannot remain separate from nature. It is part of us. We cannot say I'm different, nature is different, and God is different. The whole thing is one enormous and beautiful whole. And that is why that we are given instructions that from the morning when we get up, we have to establish this connection with nature. Now, as I said, when we get up in the morning, we wake up and touch the earth. And there's a little prayer connected with this, by which we beg her to forgive us. She's our original mother. And so we beg her to forgive us for the whole day. We're going to stamp on her. We're going to dig her up maybe in the garden. So many things we do to her. So we ask her, first of all, forgiveness for all the things I'm going to do to you during the course of this day. After that, when we go for a bath, again we have certain prayers by which we energize the water with which we are going to take a bath. Now, of course, nowadays we have pipes and running water and so on. In olden days, it was just a bucket of water, say. But even then, you can take a little mug of water, put your hands over it, and you energize that water with all the different energies which is found in all the different rivers and sources of water in the world. And then you start having your bath, which means, again, you're connected with that water element. The first is you've connected yourself with the earth element. Next, you connect yourself with the water element. And then after you finish your bath, you go out, and then if one of the things we're supposed to do is to pour water for a tulsi leaf. A tulsi is a tulsi plant, rather. A tulsi is the holy basil. And we thus establish, and if you don't have a tulsi, pour some water for any plant which you think. Because all plants are really divine. We live because they exist. If plants don't exist, as you all well know, we will not exist either. So this is only a symbolic way of establishing our connection with the whole of plant life by pouring a little water to any plant that you like. Then we go to, but of course, tulsi has a special reason that we plant a tulsi in our garden or in our house, because the leaves are very good for, it's a herb actually. They're very good for colds and coughs and so on and so forth. And they make a very good tea, a herbal tea. Now again, next thing we are supposed to do is to feed some of the birds, or if you have a bird table, you go and feed and put something on the bird table, or you give some food to a dog or a cat or a cow, anything. Now this again establishes our contact, our realization of the fact that we are strongly connected to the bird life, to animal life, and in fact our whole life depends on all these creatures who are inhabiting the world. Some people even, it is said, they put little bits of sugar outside. In India, they put a little bit of sugar outside, certainly not inside their house, outside, allowing the ants to come and eat them, because again, that is a form of worship of God, of the divinity which exists in that ant, because insects are really a very important part of our life, as you know. So then this in the morning is the first thing we do to establish a relationship with the earth, with water, and with fire, because when we go, the next thing we do is to light a small little lamp. We don't on electric light or light, of course I think you all light candles. But the only problem with candles is normally the tallow is made out of some animal fat. So instead of that, what we do is light a lamp. That's which is either it has ghee in it or till oil, sesame oil, both of which when it burns, it purifies the air around us. So again, you're connected with that element of fire, you see. So of course, space is ever there. So we don't have any special connection with space as such. And so we've already had connections with all the other elements, that is fire, air, water, and earth. So this is the first thing we do. And so, as I said, these are little things that you may call them rituals, but whatever they are embedded into the very lifestyle of the Hindu. At least it was. Nowadays, of course, they're totally out of touch. Many Hindus are totally out of touch with such things. But this is the basic rules which were laid out for us. And then, as I said, when we meet people, you consider them to be part of the divine. Now, if you consider them to be divine, it automatically follows that you really don't have to give us any moral, what should I say, tenets of morality and certain do's and don'ts, how you should behave and how should you treat other people. Nothing of this has to be given. For the simple reason that if you consider the other person to be divine, obviously you are not going to kill them, you're not going to be mean to them, you're not going to do things which are bad or only selfish things which will be meant only for you. So this automatically, such an idea in your mind, automatically cuts out, gives you equal amount of moral instruction without any real instruction being given. Then what are the other, so many, now you may all wonder, sometimes you'll find, now I have a little dot in the middle of my forehead. This is what is now commonly known as the third eye. And this is a particular chakra. The word chakra is very commonly used in the West, I think now, and in America too. So these chakras are really energy points. Some of them do correspond to the endocrine glands, which have only recently been discovered by Western medicine. But these chakras are really like junction points where our nerves, so many kinds of nerves are there, and what we call nadis are there in our body. And there are certain junction points where they come and meet. Now, these chakras are special junction. Out of these, there are many chakras actually, but out of these 7 are very, very important. And this, as I said, this is the Agnya Chakra, or the third eye, which people say, because it is picturized as like 2 petals of a lotus, a 2-petal lotus. That means it looks like an eye, meaning to say that when that chakra is open, you see reality. Now you might say, are we not seeing reality? I'm sorry to disabuse you of this notion, but the fact is that you're not seeing reality. You are seeing only a semblance of reality, or what you think to be reality, which of course brings us to another very long topic, which I think Craig may be asking me later on. So we reserve it for that. For the time being, all I need to tell you is this, that this Agnya Chakra is supposed to be the position. Now, when you say, where's your mind? We normally show your head or something like that. Now, the mind is actually everywhere. It's all over. And it's not just in your head, though, because you may think certain brain, points in the brain, which makes the mind function. But, one of the concentration points of the mind is this Agnya Chakra, or the center between the 2 brows. So what happens is when you put a dot in the middle of that, in olden days, everybody had a dot. Some type of dot or other was put on the forehead by everybody, male or female. Now, of course, only females do that, and very often it is meant as a ornament or something to beautify yourself. But in olden days, it had a very specific reason. Now, when you look at a blank piece of, paper a huge white bed sheet in front of you, you really can't focus because it's just blank and it's just white, and what can you focus on? But the moment you put a one dot somewhere there, your eyes are automatically drawn to that dot. The same thing happens when you meet somebody. The gaze or the look of that person is automatically drawn to that little dot in the middle of your forehead. And vice versa, your gaze is also drawn to that dot. Now this means that, and that dot, as I said, is the center of the mind's movements, and especially when someone concentrates on it. So the moment you concentrate on it, what happens is that you are drawing out the best in that person. Similarly, he is also drawing out the best in you. So these are they're very ordinary things for which we do, which are inculcated into our culture. But they're all specifically, they're really highly scientific and intended to bring out the best in a human being, in the personality of a human being. Now, the science was so amazing and so fine and so subtle that even these dots, they have different colors, if you might have noticed. As I said, I don't think in America you see the different colors, but in India they're pretty obvious, especially when you go to the south. Now, normal thing for most women will be wearing a red dot. Now, red, as you know, is a very vibrant color. And this red dot, it's a kind of a vermilion powder. It is a mixture of turmeric and lime, and it's mixed together. And originally, how it was made is a very intricate and elaborate process where it was kept under the light of the moon for a month or so before it could be used. Now again, I'm sorry to say that all the red vermilions which we get are all chemicals. But the original one is a very, very perfect one. Because now the qualities of turmeric is also very well known in the West now. And this connection with that line, again, has a very, very amazing ability to protect you also. So this red thing, and as you put that dot in the middle of your forehead, again, what are you doing? You are activating that Agnya Chakra and making you bring out the best in you. So that, it is something which is for action, really. So that is connected with the goddess. We will be discussing the goddess soon, I think. So she is Shakti, or the power, or that part of that supreme which activates things. So her color is red, vibrant red. So red again stands for her. Now some people you will find they will have the sandal paste on their forehead. I have some here also. Now sandal paste is a very cooling thing. It's a very cooling, harmonious, makes you feel rested and happy and peaceful. And naturally, this stands for the harmonizer in the Trinity, in the Hindu Trinity, known as Vishnu, Narayana. So the devotees of Vishnu will wear this on their forehead, and that automatically cools them, makes them feel more calm and rested. Now, and there is another thing which is also used on the forehead by many people in India, and that is ashes of which again is a complicated process how these ashes are made. But ashes stand for Shiva, the destroyer in the Trinity, as you know. And why ashes? Why is he so fond of ashes? Because it makes us remember that we are really meant to become ashes at one time or other. That this life eventually, this body at least, not life, this body at least has to go back to the ashes from which it has come, because that ash is made up of many different things, from the firewood and so on. How does the wood come? How does a tree? All these things are there in that. So that all these ideas come to that when ashes are used, it is meant to remind you of your mortality which is something we all like to forget and we keep it away from our minds. But the fact is that it is something which we have to accept whether we want to or not. So this reminds us again and again. And what is the reason for reminding us of our mortality? And this is the reason. And the reason is that so long as we know, most of us, of course, we know in our heart of hearts that we are not immortal. But many of us behave as if we are immortal, because when we do so many bad actions and so many, really criminal actions, it is as if you think you are never going to die, and this is all that you're going to, this is the only thing you're going to live for. But if you remember that one day you are going to die, it is very doubtful with such a man who's been told that, look, when the doctor tells him that, look, you've got just 1 week to live, very, very unlikely that man would run off and murder somebody or rob a bank or do something which is highly criminal and notorious. This is because he realizes that he's going to die in a week. So this idea of mortality, again, is a kind of a deterrent for us, stopping us from doing, criminal activities. So again, as I said, no moral advice needs to be given. But if these ideas are there in the mind, automatically you follow the laws of ethics and morality. So then there's hundreds of little things like that. For instance, again, some of us, married women in India, will wear a toe ring. Now the toe ring on the second toe of the woman, why do they wear a toe ring on that particular toe? It's because there is a nerve or nadi which runs straight from that to the heart, and so that it is it's not to the heart, it's the ring finger which runs. It runs to the uterus. So that activation of that particular nadi will see to it, and it's worn only by married women. You must remember that. Girls, unmarried girls don't wear that. So it's worn on the day of your marriage, and it's put there by your husband. And that runs to the uterus, activates and sees to it that you will produce good progeny, that the babies will be activated or energized by this particular ring on your toe. So these are just a few things which occur to me, but of course there are thousands more. A whole life of a Hindu is marked with rituals, one after the other. But these are not considered as rituals as such. They're just part of our lives, because everything in the life of a Hindu is sacred. Nothing is ever secular. Everything is sacred. Every action we make is supposed to be of sacred worth, because as I said, we are taught to believe that we are intimately connected with nature and God, of course, because God is both immanent and transcendent. And therefore, we are intimately connected with God and nature every second of our lives. And this is what is meant to remind us of this constantly. All these different things we are asked to do during the day are all part of it. Eating is another very important part. Eating, of course, most important part of our life, because what we eat, so we become. What should I say, the potato and the tomato we ate yesterday, what becomes me today. I mean, this is an amazing transformation. Who can eat I should not say potato. You will say, okay, you do say potato, but you say...
We do, yes.
Okay. Well, let's say aubergine then. That's quite... Well, the aubergine you ate yesterday has become you today. Now, what is a machine that can transform such a thing? It's an amazing machine which our body is. So everything, how important our food is, you will realize from that. Because we are what we eat. Our body is what we eat. Not we, but our bodies are what we eat. So it's very, very important part of our, and of course we have prayers and so on to be said before every meal, before we eat anything. And water is again sprinkled over the meal, because water has been found to be a great conductor of energy, spiritual energy. And recently I heard that a Japanese professor found out that 2 glasses, he took 2 glasses of water He prayed over one, put his hands over one and prayed over it, and the other one he left by itself. And naturally, the molecules, the water molecules of the one he had prayed over was in coherence, and the other was haphazard. So these are things which are ingrained into us from childhood. And it's because we have been taught of the fact that we are totally and intimately connected with everything in nature. So everything we do is just part of nature, and therefore it is scientific. Now, I don't know.
And very practical as well, I think, is what you're telling us, that these things are being scientific. They have real effects that affect our mind, our bodies, our emotions, our consciousness, our relationship with other people, our relationship with the planet, and all those things. And it's also very practical because it's simple, and that you don't need to remember, like you said, all these rules and instructions and laws and that kind of thing. Just you connect with it and commune with something in your heart, and all the natural morality and proper behavior follows quite naturally from that. So let me move on to another question here for you. Thank you very much. I wanted to say, one of the most refreshing aspects that I found when I came on to a spiritual path of yoga and meditation, based on Eastern teachings, it was the freedom that it really gave me to relate to the divine in a deeply personal way. I was raised in a Western religion that taught me to be essentially afraid of God and afraid of God's judgment. It's not a dogma that really I ever accepted in my heart, because there were even times when I tested whether this was true, trying to, ask God to prove, whether this was the case or not. And I think his response was to lead me to an Eastern teaching. And I can still remember the joyful release when I realized that God didn't have to be wrathful and could really be loved. And so I wondered if you could just speak then to the consciousness that you've observed and then practiced in Hinduism and India, where there's so much more of a spiritual experience than a religious one per se, and really speak to maybe how people around the world can more deeply attune themselves to that way of being in whatever context they find themselves.
Well, this is a very good question, because I find that all the fundamentalism which exists in the world today is only due to the fact that they have no idea or concept of the divine, of God. Their concept is so limited. It's limited to some sort of a figure, a father figure normally, who lives somewhere in heaven, totally unconnected to the rest of us, and who is very biased, let us say, towards his own followers. Now, the one God of the Semitic religions is, as I said, is a transcendent God, and it's an exclusive God, exclusive for the people of his votaries who believe in him. Now, we are all live in an age where we love, everything has to be exclusive. You have to have exclusive shoes and products of the coats and everything. The more exclusive it is, the better it is for us. That's the idea. And because of that, you made your God also exclusive, exclusively meant for those who believe in him. All others who don't believe in him are sent to eternal hell or some other, I don't know, maybe some other purgatory, whatever. Anyway, the Hindus also have we also believe in one God, or rather, I don't want to call it God also, because the very word God gives it brings out so many different ideas or visions to people that I'd rather say it's a being, a supreme. The Hindus also believe in that supreme being. But this supreme being is not only transcendent, but it is immanent, and it is also inclusive, all inclusive, not exclusive. Far from it. It's all inclusive it's inclusive of this entire cosmos, because there's nothing, there's nothing, not from the planets right down to the little grains of sand. There is nothing which is not it. I'd rather say it than him, because why should we? Because in India, we also believe that God is not just him, but she also, her also. So anyway, we'll keep it to it, because it is actually an energy of force, which is there which is immanent in everything. It has a transcendental aspect, of course, but its most important aspect as far as we are concerned, as human beings are concerned, is the fact that it is there in everything. And this is the basis of the so-called idol worship of the Hindus, because if it is immanent, then we have already said that it is in you, in you, in me, in him, in it, in everything. And as I said, that is why in the morning itself we are asked to connect to that divinity in everything, in the earth and in the animals, in the birds, everything. So it is not only in that, but it can also be in any kind of a form you choose to worship him. Why not? It is formless, therefore it can enter into any form you choose. It's your choice, because you are the one who's worshipping. What gives it divinity is your mind. I can as easily enter into a church and worship a cross as into maybe never into the Kaaba stone, but we could easily worship. In fact, the lingas which we worship in all in the Shiva temples are very much like these stones. So there is nothing which is not where divinity is not available. So if you want, we can form a concept of God which is most pleasing to our own eyes, or to our own heart rather, emotions rather, because it's very difficult to have a kind of a intimate conversation or intimate close association with a God who is totally transcendent and totally beyond senses, which it is, of course. Actually it is. But since it is immanent, it can also enter into anything which we love, which we think is wonderful. So that's why we can worship a cow, a tree, a people tree, the river, or the rain, whatever you like. There's no end to it, because why are you limiting that formless one to one form? You are actually bringing down his powers by limiting him to one form or one name which you think belongs only to God. You are actually limiting that unlimited, glorious and omnipresent, omnipotent being. You're limiting into one name only. So here we at the moment, while we think we may limit him to one form, but we know that he is limitless. Therefore, that form is only like a small photo. Like if you have your mother or your father or someone, or your wife or husband, and you're far away, why do you keep a photo of that woman or your children beside you? Because that photo will make you understand that, you immediately your mind goes to that, the person behind the photo. Similarly, all our gods are meant only as a sign to show that this is also a form of the formless, that you can connect with him in any way you want. In fact, the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita tells Krishna tells Arjuna, oh dear, it's something. It says the internet connection is unstable. Are you hearing me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we're still hearing you just fine.
Okay.
So the video was a little choppy, but you can keep speaking.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that means, you can contact him at any one point in the world, in the universe. If you want to pinpoint him on a star, you can do so. If you want to pinpoint him in a drop of water on the ground, you can do so. It is your wish. But the clear understanding should be there that this is only one form, one little form of that enormous, formless being, of which we cannot ever understand, because our mind is beyond, does not have the ability to conceive of that which is formless, which is omnipotent and omnipresent. So this is one of the bases of the so again, as I said in the 10th chapter, we were going to the 10th chapter of the Gita. He says, tells Arjuna, God does not try to hide himself from your view. In fact, He's there everywhere. He's there for you to see. Just look at the creation. And he describes the different aspects of creation. He says, you can see, first of all, learn to see him in the great and the glorious, because that is what the human mind associates him with it. After that, learn to see him in the small and the insignificant. First of all, learn to see him in the good and the noble and the kind and the compassionate. Then learn to see him in the unkind, the ugly, and the cruel and the wicked. See him in a Rama is easy, but to see him in a Ravana is difficult. So to see him as a Krishna is easy, but to see him as a Christ is easy, let's say, but to see him in Judas is difficult. But we are told that the same energy will exist in everything. The same energy which makes Christ, Jesus a Christ, is the same energy which made Judas to betray him, even though he was one of his favorite disciples. So this is the thing we are made to learn, because there is nothing beyond that absolute. There is nothing beyond it. So everything and anything you can, the human mind can ever think of is that. And you can learn to see him in the great and the glorious, in the creation, every sunset, every moonrise, the breeze which comes and cools you down when you are in the hot sun. Anything that you can think of, but also he's in the thunder and the lightning and the storm. These are things which we are made, the mind of a human being made to see again and again and again, so that we have no difficulty in conceiving of that creator, or that because he's a creator, he's a supreme creator. He who creates created the sun has also created that snake which is crawling around and trying, well, the mosquito which is trying to bite you. He's the same creator. If you think he's omnipotent, don't deny any of his creation to him. He alone exists everywhere in whatever form you want to see him. This is one of the basic ideas or basic strength of the Hindu religion.
Yeah, thank you very much. You reminded me of when Paramahansa Yogananda was with his Guru Sri Yukteswar in Serampore, and having a lot of mosquitoes at night. And he asked Sri Yukteswar, it's like, well, or someone maybe had asked Yogananda later, it's like, why do we have all these mosquitoes? Why must beautiful places be infested with these? And he just said, well, that's God's way of reminding us to draw ever closer back to our true source, and to not believe that this world is the end all and be all and the goal of our final destiny. Which brings me to loop back to, what you're saying a little earlier about the nature of reality, and to kind of switch gears here a little bit, that you've written a number of very interesting pieces on space and quantum physics and connecting together the ancient Vedic teachings on the nature of reality and Maya with modern scientific thought. So I just wanted to invite you to speak to that for a few minutes here.
Okay. Now, this is one of my favorite subjects, really speaking, though I'm not a physicist and never did. But somehow the fact is that when I did learn a little bit of physics, and especially quantum physics, I was struck by the fact that all the things which the ancient rishis had said so many thousands of years ago just clicked and fell into place when I read modern quantum, the ideas of modern quantum physics. Now, we all know the word Maya, of course, has been taken up by everybody in the West as well as it's. Now, what exactly did the rishis mean by saying Maya? Now, the Maya is, all they said was that the world is Maya. So in olden days, everybody scorned us. Oh, the Hindus think that everything is an illusion. They don't know in reality. They don't live in reality. They lived in some abstract sort of world because they think everything is an illusion. Now, what the rishis said was that the world, by the word Maya, they meant the world is not as you think you are seeing it, which is exactly what at that time nobody could understand. Of course, in their times, thousands of years ago, obviously nobody could understand. So they didn't try to explain the scientific reasons behind all this. But they just said this is Maya. So it is an illusionary world which you're seeing. So, but now today with 20th century or end of 19th century modern physics, quantum physics, what has it said? What is it saying? That the world, that what you're seeing, matter is only energy in motion. Now, can you believe this? When the rishis said it ages ago, of course, nobody believed them. They just poo-pooed the whole idea. But today, when the physicists, the most physical of all scientists, when they say this, we are kind of prepared to believe it. But even then, our eyes are belying the truth of what they're saying. We just, because I say, tell me, the hand, I'm touching this computer and I know it's solid matter. I feel it, I can see it, I can touch it. So, but what is physics trying to tell me? That matter is only energy in motion. This is all a huge dervish dance of protons and neutrons and negative particles and so on and so forth. How can I believe it? My five senses are not qualified to see or understand such things. But the rishis with their great insight, they were actually 10 sensory beings, and they were not 5 sensory beings as we are. So obviously they went into the heart of matter and discovered that it was really nothing at all. It's just just energy. Everything is energy. There's nothing apart from that energy. That energy is in us as well. And by some strange mechanics of which we still are not sure of, this mind changes this whole thing, this whole energy pattern. It changes it to make us believe that certain forms are there in front of us. Because the 18th century, 19th century physicists thought that matter is made up of hard little balls of atoms or whatever. But then to see the whole thing melt before their eyes was something which was incredible and which needed a lot of getting used to. And even today, of course, most normal, ordinary humans cannot really understand it, and certainly they're not going to believe it either. But since it is the scientists who have said it, and not a grey-beard old rishi who has said it thousands of years ago, they are prepared to consider it at least. So now we realize that what they said about Maya, the world being Maya, is really the truth. They knew that this world as we see it, as the senses tell us, the senses are great, they are deceivers at best and liars at worst. They just don't give you the true pattern or true idea of what this world of matter is. They just delude you into thinking it is so. It is very much like when we watch a TV movie on a TV screen. What are we seeing? We involve ourselves totally in that drama which is going on in front of us. We love the hero and we hate the villain, and we get happy when the hero and the heroine meet, and we are unhappy when the villain kills the hero. So on, everything, we're totally involved in that. Provided you have to be involved in that if you want to enjoy the show. But if you just think, if reasonably and scientifically you start thinking, you're not going to enjoy the show, I assure you, because scientifically and when you think, you will realize that it is just a play of light and sound. It's a light and sound play, nothing else. It's a play of, you're seeing something is being, waves of energy, of light and sound wave energy is being brought into the screen. And you're made to believe something which is, really speaking, does not exist except in your mind. This is very similar to what we are enjoying or not enjoying, or which we are experiencing in this world outside. Is very similar to the enjoyment or non-enjoyment of the drama or film that we are watching in a TV screen. This is as much the rishis were well aware of this. But that didn't mean that they didn't give us certain rules, because there are certain rules to be followed, even if you're watching a light and sound play. So these are, that's why there are so many little things which is what we have to do, which I've already discussed in our daily life, so that we can make the best of this Maya world in which we are living in. And so it's a great thing that the modern physicists, the quantum physicists, did for the Maya theory, and for Hinduism too, because it showed that all the things which the rishis have been telling us from ages before are really, even though we cannot experience it as they have said, still we can at least intellectually have some understanding and have some, and not have absolute faith in what our five senses tell us, because as I said, they are really deceivers at best. They try to deceive us, like a person going in the desert and watching a oasis there and running towards it. They somehow, it's an illusion. It's a hallucination. Sometimes it's a hallucination. Sometimes it's an illusion. The desert, this thing is a pure illusion. So similarly, we should not. That it just goes to show that we should not be totally caught up in emotionally or even physically caught up in this drama which is being played out for us in this world, which really does not exist as we think it exists, and of which we have a concept which is totally wrong. So why be caught up in a it's like being caught up in a drama which is happening on the TV screen, and we get so upset, so I'm so unhappy over it. Why are you crying over that the villain who was, the lover who died, or the beloved who was killed, or what? Why are we getting so caught up with it? Because we think it's real. At the time when we're experiencing it, we think it is real. But to come out of it and still cry over it is something, it's really bordering on insanity. And that's exactly what we are doing with life as it is. We take everything to be real. All our experiences are wonderful. This person loves me, that person hates me. I love this person, I don't like this person. So many likes and dislikes. We are in this world of duality, constantly on the seesaw of like and dislike, happiness and unhappiness. So why not sit on the fulcrum of that seesaw and watch both are there? Then it becomes a passing show which you can enjoy, whether it is good or bad. That is not the criterion at all. You can enjoy both the good and the bad as long as you know that it is only a show. But it's only when you totally involve yourself in that show and think that this is all real, only then the happiness and unhappiness of that particular show affects you. So this is one thing, great thing which the quantum physics has done for humanity, I would say, to prove that this world is really one of Maya.
And just like you said earlier with Krishna teaching us how to see, as he says in the Gita, to see the sage and the beggar and the clod of mud and the bar of gold all as equal expressions of that one divine being that's coming through everything. We say the same thing about all our different experiences and the way people behave or don't behave, or the way we think things ought to be or aren't coming in a way we think they should, and so forth. That, through that consciousness that you spoke of earlier, we can really relax into just the peace of, really communion with that divine being. So I want to ask a question that's much more personal, I think, now. That I know some of the folks in our audience here have enjoyed books like The Play of God and The Song of Rama. And I was wondering if you could tell us something of how you approached that kind of devotional storytelling and what you experienced in the process of writing works like that, and how you really draw those accounts to you.
This is a very, very difficult question, for the simple reason that if I tell you what I really experienced, none of you are going to believe this. The fact is that I was just propelled into that by the gods themselves. I had really very little to do with it. I just started it off, not even starting, I would say. Neither the start nor the end was mine, nor was anything which happened in the middle. But when the idea was put into my mind by them, by the God, the divine itself, I opened a page and I wrote the title and I started on it. And then what happened, they took over. This is the literal truth. They took over. And when I needed something, which I never went to a library at all at any time or any of these things. They just, and I didn't even use Mr. Google, I assure you, except very recently only I've started using Google. And those times when I first started, I didn't use it. So it just happened that it's very easy to write about the gods because they take you over. It's not like trying to write about some human being or some novel which people write. Novels must be much more difficult because you have to put a lot of yourself into it. Now I remember, in fact, my daughter-in-law, she told me that I wanted to know something about my future mother-in-law, so I started reading your books, and I found there was nothing in it about you, which normally a novelist would have something about themselves in their books. But in these books on the gods, obviously nothing of me can come in because I, as a personality, did not exist at that time. The gods simply took over and they started dictating their own lives. And when I needed some special information about them, somehow by some method, mysterious method, I would either come across a book or I would suddenly come across an article, or somebody would come and talk to me about something, and then I would realize, this is what I'm supposed to be writing, and thus it goes on without any problem. But my last book actually is called Dwarkanatha. It is another book on Lord Krishna. That is a totally different experience altogether, because in that I found that, again, I just started the book without any concept of what I'm going to say and how it's going to end or anything like that. But again, in there, I was simply lifted on to another, space or another place of far beyond this world which we are living in. I was wafted off to some city or 5,000 years, which existed 5,000 years ago, the city of Dwarka, which was built by Lord Krishna. And the whole scene after scene simply started unfolding itself before my eyes. Or let me say my inner eye, rather. I mean, if I close my eyes, I could see very clearly what are the things which went on there. So that is a very personal kind of a book. But none of the others are personal at all. They are just, as I said, on the gods who literally took over my entire life and guided my hand on the computer, so that what came out was their story and nothing of my story.
Well, I appreciate that, especially for myself, that I've had a similar experience, and maybe you won't believe this, is that I had the same kind of experience while writing a very long programming book for Microsoft some years back, where, it wasn't, I was kind of released. I let myself go and let the book write itself, which is to say, let the divine flow through me in the way it wanted to do it. And it ended up being very popular, and a lot of people loved how it was written, and I just had to bow to the divine, for in gratitude for having that flow through me. So I personally understand very much where you're coming from, and I know other people have had similar experiences. So I want to open it up for questions and answers in a few minutes, but just before that, I'd like to just give you a chance to speak about what you're engaged in most at present, and share a little especially about the Adiveda Trust that you're developing, and share that with us.
Yes, we formed a trust called the Adiveda, the original Veda, and it is a trust for trying to propagate or make Hindus themselves understand their religion, because this unfortunate truth is that even in India, the Hindu children, the parents don't know anything much about Hinduism, except that to teach their children you have to go to the temple and so on, which is only a very, very minor part of Hinduism. But so then I feel that this is one of the most amazing cultures that the world has ever produced. This the culture of the Sanatana Dharma. That is why it is known as the ancient law of righteousness, because it's the only law which has existed, which gives credence to the world, to the universe, to everything that we do. So this law, I feel this culture needs to be kept up, because the Hindus themselves know so little about it. And so much has been battered so badly with all the number of invasions, foreign invasions which we've had. And all of them have had, ulterior motives, that their own religion should be impressed and imposed on this, because because they did not understand. Hinduism is not an easy religion to understand. It has only to be experienced. It is not something you can totally understand, because it covers every aspect of human life and divine the divinity also. It takes in all aspects. So then I felt this is a very important, and it's no use having meetings and seminars and going to the UN about it, and because unfortunately, there is a deliberate attempt by many vested interests to make the Hindus themselves disbelieve in in their own glorious culture. And this is affecting, because so many of our people are going abroad, and they're so buffeted by all sorts of other ideas that they've forgotten about their own culture, which I strongly believe is the only culture which can make the whole of the world into a peaceful and loving and happy society. So then, with this in view, we started this. And I have written a book called The Basic Tenets of Hinduism, which teaches a child from childhood how, because we are not an organized religion. We are too free. That's our problem, is that we are given too much of freedom. The very first charter of freedom to the human being was given by the ancient rishis of India. They told us these are the things you have to follow. But if you think otherwise, you can think for yourself. God has given you a mind and an intellect to think. And if you think for yourself and accept it and follow it, then it will be to your good. If you don't, then that is that is your choice. So the choice has always been given to us. And that is why so many people stray away to other religions, which give them very strict and stern do's and don'ts. But again, as I said, that also has a problem, because it is okay for a young tree if you put a thing round it, but it helps it to grow, and that is very important for a young tree, and that is what we don't have. We don't have a proper system of education for the very young. We just tell them, but now even the parents don't know how to tell them, what to tell them. So that is very necessary for the youth. So this program is especially meant for young children. I'm hoping that it will go into the mainstream of education. I don't know how far, because it was removed at one time from all yoga, all our Hindu teachings were removed from our mainstream education because we were supposed to be a secular country. I don't know what they mean by that. India has always been a secular country. It has opened its arms to anyone who wanted to come in there, and never put any bars on anybody's types of worship. Unfortunately, like the Arab in the camel's tent, many of these not only came in, but took over the whole tent. And that is why we are in such a position now. So I think this program, this book is meant to be given to children and also adults who don't know anything about Hinduism, so that they can, from the basics, they'll be taught what it means to be a good human being, which is a good Hindu. A good Hindu is really actually basically a good, and not just good, but a perfect human being. A perfect human being whose birthright is to have not happiness, because happiness will always bring unhappiness, but his birthright is ecstasy and bliss. That is his birthright. Such a human being is what we try to produce by following the dictates of ancients, Ananda and Dharma. So this book, I'm hoping it will be of great use. It's just already gone for printing. I'm hoping to translate into many of the languages of the states of India and try it so that the children can be taught that, at least privately. If not, the government does not allow it to be taught in the mainstream of educational institutions. At least we can start it privately. I'm hoping that it will flower and become something which is really important, not just to Indians, but to the whole world.
All right, thank you very much, and thank you for all the other wonderful discussions that we've had here in the last hour. So we're going to open it up to Q&A now from our attendees, and the way this works for everyone listening in, there's two options. One is there's in your meeting window, there's a Q&A button you can press there and type a question, which I can then ask Mataji on your behalf. Or there's a function that says raise hand, and if you want to raise your hand, then I will promote you to what's called panelists that turns able to turn your audio on if you want to have a direct question and answer with Mataji. So feel free to do that as you choose. I'll give people a moment here. I do have a few other questions that people sent me earlier in case no one raises their hand. One must always be prepared there. Okay, Bruce Berger has one here. Let me promote you, Bruce. I will connect you, and let's see where that comes through here.
My dear friend, Arvind Berger, yeah.
Yeah, so Bruce, you should be ready to go here. I heard you. There you go.
Mataji, can you hear? I'm just
yeah, I can.
Grateful for you.
Wonderful.
How grateful we are. And my question is, how can we support Adiveda? How can we get involved and support Adiveda? It sounds like such an important thing to do.
Yes, the fact is we are trying to get we are trying to get members, because we have to make a little amount of money to pay our teachers, because they may all come from poorer sections in the villages. I'm starting from a village actually in the Himalayas. I've already started there. So for that we thought we'll have membership, a very small one, like I say 1,000 rupees I think a month or something it's given. But I've got all the addresses. Anyone who wants to become a member, we are still in the process of setting up the banking system. So as soon as that's ready, all of you will get letters on how you can start off with this membership. And after that, of course, the main thing is that if you can possibly start a small school, either of children or adults or whoever you feel should be taught the basics of the Sanatana Dharma, we will send you the book, and you can make copies of it or do something and start little classes all over. The more we teach it to more people, the better off the world is going to be. That's what I feel. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming on.
Good night, Mataji.
By the way, Bruce Berger was our first American friend we had in our ashram, and I'm really so grateful to him for all the support he's given to us over the years. And he's the one who's still running our website, vanamaliashram.org. So he was literally a godsend.
All right, we'll see if there's any other questions coming in. Maybe in the meantime, there was one question someone asked earlier here, which is, in your many encounters with India's rishis and saints, what have been among your most profound experiences?
I've not had the actual encounters with them. It's been only through telepathic encounters, I would say, because I find that almost all the sages, many of the past ones, have made some sort of appearance in our ashram, which is a very strange thing. But many of them, in many ways, have appeared to have come to an and that is actually an experience which I can hardly share, because something totally private. I can't say what but one thing for sure, all of those whom I have come into contact with have always showed me that reality is to be found in the world itself. If you want to, don't think that reality is something which we have to die and go to heaven to get, or God if you want, want to call the name. But the fact is that God is being everywhere. You have to contact him, that heaven, that God, that reality, that absolute. If you want contact with that, it has to be in and through your daily life. You don't have to wait for death, or you don't have to wait for some special, miracle, because people are so keen on miracles these days. The miracle of life is the most greatest miracle of all. Every day you wake up and you are alive. Just imagine you're not dead. Another day spreads out before you to attain so many things that you have missed out maybe during all the days that you live. So that itself, the fact that you have eyes to see, that I have a tongue and a mouth to talk, these are the daily miracles. Be aware of them. Be aware of the little miracles which happen all around you. Go into nature, watch the rainfall, the thunderstorm, the Irma coming, sweeping in. Of course, you may not feel that it's that great when you are in the middle of it. But even then, the ability to enjoy that is there within you, because it is part of that grand design of the great designer.
Thank you. Again, so anybody who has a direct question, please use the raising hand or Q&A. And you can do that while she's speaking. You won't interrupt anybody here. So one of the other questions that was sent to me was, what are concrete examples or stories that explain the science of timelessness? How would you explain that to, someone who's not familiar with that kind of concept, that time doesn't exist?
Well, fact is that as long as we are in this mind and intellect and in this method of thought, time does exist. We are totally bound by time. Now, but again, to come back to modern science, it has proved so many things which the rishis have told us long ago. Modern science has proved that time and space are intellectual concepts. And because what is, what happens during a certain amount of time in a certain spot, that is considered to be by us to be our experience. But when you look back, when you were a child, you will find that time stretched, immeasurable time. If you told a child, look, you are good, you are good now, I will give you a ice cream at the end of the day. Oh my God, at the end of the day, it seems like the end of eternity to the child. Now, the older you are, the faster time flows. So it is from that itself you can realize that it is a concept, it's a mental concept. Of course, the physical is totally different. The physical has its own rules and regulations, and nobody can change that. That is something that the body has to go through from babyhood to infancy and so on until old age. That's something which is automatically there, and which we can never, though all of us want to try and avert this possibility, yet we have not much control over that. But we do have certain control of our its concept that time is something which weighs down upon us, and we have to, but we don't realize that we are in a timeless world. It's because of this concept that it is something which is terrible. We think, and also because we have tied our inner divinity with this outer gross body. We have tied it up by some strange method of thought. We have tied up that inner body of ours, astral body. It is actually, there is a bond with that astral body, with the body, which this physical body, which is always there. But it does not mean, even though it is there, it does not mean that it cannot be severed. Like the umbilical cord is severed at the birth. Before birth, the child is tied through that umbilical cord to the mother. Once it is born, once it comes out, that is no longer necessary for it. And so that is cut. Now, the same thing happens at death. When the physical body has had its own this thing, at death, there's a cord which connects that astral body to this physical body. That is cut. But it can also, we can also try realize even in our own, while we are still in this body, we are meant to realize that this is only a sort of an imagination, that we are actually tied to this body. We are not tied to this body, because we are a timeless and spaceless entity which was always in existence and will always be in existence. That is why in Hinduism we don't say that death is the opposite of life. We don't say that. We say that birth is the opposite of death. Birth and death are opposites because they are things which cannot be overcome. We are born. If we are born one day, we have to die another day. That is pretty obvious. We cannot change that. But life, this happens only with the body. This applies only to the body. That the body comes into existence in one particular space and time, and it has got to come to an end at another point in space and time. But we say death, life death, birth and death are opposites. But life goes on forever, because there is that life in you. There is that energy in you. There is that divine spark in you, which has ever existed and which will ever continue to exist, even with the dropping of this body. It has nothing to do with the body, except that for some particular reason of its own, it has taken some sort of form, external form, by which it can attain certain things. That is why in that way the human body is very important. We say the human birth is very important, because it's only in the human birth that we can ever even realize that such a thing exists, that there is such a thing as this divine, as this endless, supremely conscious, super conscious and blissful entity which is in us and in everything else. So our duty is to find that bliss while living in this body, which means the moment you discover this, then that is the end of time and space as far as you are concerned, because you've already become a timeless, spaceless, divine being, which will continue to exist or will melt back to that super consciousness, even when the body falls down, as it has to fall down one day or the other.
Okay, thank you. Next question that came in. We know that you met and had some experiences with Swami Kriyananda, who is the founder of the Ananda spiritual communities that I know I'm a part of, and Ananda University is based here at Ananda Village, and we do have I think a group of people in the university's library that are joining us tonight as a group. And so the question is whether you have some stories that you could share about meeting and knowing Swami Kriyananda, who to many of us was a very special soul.
Kriyananda was a very special soul to anyone who met him, and certainly he was to me as well. First time I met him was in Rishikesh. He was living across the river in a kutia which had been given to him for his to do his retreat, and somehow.
Do you know?
I'm living in a timeless, dateless world. Don't ask me about dates. I have no idea about dates. So then he was. So we went across and met him, and invited him to the this thing. So at those times, to come across the river, there was only one. There was one bridge there. Otherwise, you had to come by boat. Anyway, he was kind enough to agree, and my brother Mohan took him on his motor scooter, and he perched on the back of that motor scooter and brought him to ashram. It was so wonderful. He was such a divine being, really, such a exalted and great being. I consider it a great honor to have met him and had so much to do with him. And then afterwards, when he came to Delhi, he started, every time we went to Delhi, we were invited to his house. Then we've gone again to the Ananda in where you are now at the moment, and went to his kutia and spent time. And he made lovely coffee for us, but he had a coffee maker, but I didn't dare tell him that coffee was something which I totally disliked. So when he gave me this lovely cup of coffee, I said, "Oh, wonderful! I like the smell of coffee." I said, which is the truth. But I don't know what I did with the rest of the cup. Maybe I went out and poured it down or something. Anyway, it was great fun, and he liked watching movies, and he asked me to do it. And so I said, "Do you have?" He says he has some of the old movies. So I said, have you seen any of those? An old Walt Disney movie called Fantasia. So he said, "Oh yes, I'd love it," and he got it for me, and we watched it together. And unfortunately, this is something which you never do. Something you watch when you're very young, and it impresses you immensely. When you watch much later, somehow it falls from the, and both of us found that it was a little bit artificial. But anyway, still we watched it. Then he used to take us out to, Italian restaurants, and I wanted to see pizza being flung into the air and, made like that. And he was so kind, and so I can't imagine how kind he was to me. And eventually, I would say at the end, I couldn't meet him once. He had asked me to come to Delhi. I couldn't meet him there. But when he was in Pune, and that time, all of a sudden, it seemed to me that I must go and meet him. Though the time was not suitable at all for me, but I said, no, I have to go and meet him. And somehow I just took the next thing. And Sahaja was with me at that time, so we both went there. And we spent a lot of time with him, and he invited us for lunch. And it was such a wonderful time, because that was the last time I ever saw him. He was so frail. And I thought, maybe this is the last time I'm going to see him. But I was so grateful to God for having taken me there without any. It would have been much easier for me to have gone to Delhi, actually. But instead of that, it was not meant to be. And I went to Pune and saw him. I think just a month later, he passed away.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Another question that had come in said, first of all, thank you for your darshan, Ma. And it says, since the day we were born, we are given a name and identity. While it is the result of our own karma, our environment has a huge impact on us. How does one then identify our own sabhava? I think S-V-A-B-H-A-V-A. I'm not exactly sure what that word means.
What is that?
Svabhava. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. It's in the Q&A window. You might be able to see if you wanted to, but I think you understood.
Yeah. So how do we? What was the question?
It said, while we have our name and identity, and our karma and our environment has an impact on us, how does one identify our own svabhava?
Swadharma means, swa means, the innermost being, really. Swa, that is the innermost being. So actually what Krishna means by swadharma is actually contact with that innermost being. So mostly people will translate it when they are explaining the Gita. For instance, he say to Arjuna, he was a Kshatriya, so his Swadharma was to protect his country and fight for it if necessary. So that was his Swadharma, and many of us have. But nowadays we don't have such clear-cut Swadharmas. We all are in differentiations of jobs and activities and so on. So we don't get clear-cut Swadharma. But one thing is there, the inner meaning of that word is Swadharma. What is the dharma of this human being? Why have I taken birth in this particular body? There's all sorts of things which I have not controlled, have made me into this particular body, in this particular country, and in the womb of a particular woman, and with so many other things around us. And these are all something which we have was not in our control. So we think it's something called karma, but this is not true. This is that, it is true to a certain extent that all the vasanas, all the tendencies which you have had before is what has brought you into this particular situation at this particular point in time and space. That is true. But if something has been brought like that, it is equally within your possibility, equally within your hands to bring out a new karma for yourself. Change this, and you can't change what has gone, but you can. There is the possibility, is always there, that you can bring a new karma. And here is where the real meaning of Swadharma comes in. That is, Swa means your inner self. Your Dharma, the human Dharma, is to find out that real self in you. That is the Dharma of every human being. Of whether you are a man or a woman or a professor or living in very horrible conditions, or whether you're an American, an Indian, or African, or whatever it is, you are a human being, and that your Swadharma is the Dharma which is to find out that inner being, that divinity in you. That is why we have been brought into this earth, and that is why you've been given a human body. Mind you, very important, the human body. Only in the human body can you find out who you really are. Other creatures are they're all really, they're programmed creatures. They can only follow say their own Swadharma, really speaking, but without knowing. But the human being can do it consciously. Consciously, he can evolve himself. He has to be conscious of every action, conscious of that who is inside, that is a divinity in him which is trying to come out. And that is your Swadharma. The Swadharma of the human being is to find out who you really are, and then go according to that, dictates of that inner voice in you.
Thank you. So one final question now, we just have a few minutes left, is I would like to ask what you see as some of the best opportunities for East and West to come together and benefit from one another. I'm just noticing tonight that you're there in Malaysia, you have friends of yours from India. I know we have other people attending from different parts of the United States. And, we have the technology now to really connect worldwide and not be so distant from one another. And so, what do you see as some of the best opportunities for those parts of the world to come together and benefit?
Well, things like this, what we have just conducting today, I think it's a wonderful method by which we can connect with each other. I've attended some of the other ones also. Some other another group had also invited me for some, and this is a very good opportunity. Of course, another opportunity would be for more people to, come. The world has become shrunk to such an extent that there is so much of coming and going between the different worlds and different countries that again is a very good opportunity, I would say. Mm-hmm. But this is a very easy and very beautiful method of coming into contact with minds which really broaden our own minds and allow us a glimpse into reality which we are not familiar with.
And what would you say would be maybe the number one thing that the West could learn from the East, and the number one thing the East could learn from the West?
Well, the number one thing which the East could learn from the West, I think, is external cleanliness. That is one thing which I'm always admire when I come to the West. Everything is so clean. Even your trash is put in nice bags and tied up with a ribbon and thrown out, and everything is so neatly and clean. And that is a great thing. I mean, in the East, especially in India, also, especially, I would say, we are not that conscious of the environmental cleanliness. So we are very conscious of our physical cleanliness. Many of us have 2 baths a day, but environmental cleanliness, we could do a lot more to learn from the West. I think that is a very great thing. And also, another very great thing is that, more consideration. I think it's linked with each other. Consideration for the others. This, I don't know why it seems to be lacking in the East, in India especially. There should be some, maybe because we don't consider the other person to be, something different from us. So we take a lot of liberties with others, which in the West you don't do. You're much more considerate, I feel. That's one thing which we can certainly learn from you all. I love the cleanliness whenever I go abroad. So, and as for what you can learn from us, I think the Sanatana Dharma has really a lot to offer the whole world, because it is a world in itself. It's a world of you know of wonder, and more than anything, it is the truth. Though you might think when everybody says this thing is the truth, the only truth, but I don't see the only truth. But it is a huge background of truth. It is based on something which has existed for millions of years, millions, literally millions. We don't even know when it started, even though the West has taken pains to tabulate and give dates and figures. But the fact is that it is this Sanatana Dharma, something which is, we really can't, we don't know how, when and how long, because we don't try to tabulate, we don't bring it into the form of time or date or anything like that. So that is the knowledge which, if it is spread all over the world, I feel most of these problems of the world will not arise, because the very question of fundamentalism will not be raised anymore, because we have attained the fundamental truth. That once you know the fundamental truth, then you don't think that only one aspect of that truth is true, which is what people as fundamentalists say, that only one aspect of that truth is true. Is that what they say? That is actually a contradiction in terms. Truth is truth. There is no one aspect or another aspect. Truth is truth. It's the basis of life. And that truth should be available to everyone at all times, in all places. And that is something which the Sanatana Dharma has to offer. And I think it will be a great thing for the whole world if these ideas are spread everywhere.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We are at our time, and I wanted to personally thank you very much for taking the time to be with us today. And I've enjoyed having this conversation with you. I first met you, I think, back in 1998 in Rishikesh, when I was on a pilgrimage with a group of other folks. And it's been just a delightful pleasure to, again, spend time with you and hear your insights and all that. So we will be making this recording available, so we can count on that. And otherwise, I am pronaming to you and bowing and thanking you, thanking the divine in you for flowing through your form tonight to ours, and blessings to you and everyone in your household.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It has been a great opportunity, and I'm not unhappy about lack of questions, because, it always means one of two things: either that the listeners have understood every single thing which I have to say, or they have understood nothing. But either way, I think it is a good thing. So I'm really happy and very grateful indeed to you having this opportunity.
All right. Thank you again very much, and enjoy the rest of your stay there in Malaysia.
Thank you. Hari Om.
Okay. So long.
Hari Om.